Blake, did you ever have a moment when you were too young and you thought to yourself, oh, I am way too young to be seeing this right now?
Only like every time at age 12 that I saw Jack Bauer torture another terrorist on 24.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech director out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, the only person in Church Gear that sleeps in a hotel room with the lights on when he's on a gear run. And I'm here with a man who would never sleep with the lights on, my favorite co-host, Toby Walters.
Who sleeps with the lights on? How do you sleep?
You just say, I'm safer because the lights are on in this unknown room in this unknown city. Go to sleep, brain, go to sleep.
It's like, I've heard the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, hoping for different results. But I think this may be the new definition of insanity.
I mean, technically it works. I get to sleep, after I've exhausted myself.
Wow. Okay, Blake. So being way too young to see something, I mean, people would totally disagree on age of innocence or whatever it is. But when I was 18 years old, I was helping out occasionally with a live sound production company. And I was a total tech newbie. But it was super fun. I was a teenager behind the board at church, and I occasionally would get to do, things outside the church behind a board as well. And there was this moment when I was 18 when a guy I was helping in his small production company said, hey, we're going to do this festival in San Diego. So I grew up in San Diego, and I'd love for you to come help out and mix one of the side stages. I thought, well, this sounds fun. And he said, it's actually a Grateful Dead tribute festival.
Oh man, I bet you were super grateful to do that.
Obviously, because I was still alive. Yes, I know. Dad humor. It plays well.
Da-doom.
So I signed up to do this, a side stage for the Grateful Dead Tribute Festival. And I don't know if I told my parents that I'm going to a Grateful Dead Tribute Festival, because my parents are super conservative and strict. I would not have been allowed to attend this thing.
They probably wouldn't even let you go to a festival.
No. I mean, I think the first Christian music festival I went to, I was probably 19. So I went to the Grateful Dead tribute before I even went to a Christian festival.
I'm not sure that you're getting into heaven, but I'll put in a good word for you.
Well, thanks. So as we've heard from so many of our guests that have been in the touring world, these days start early.
Early.
So I had to get up 2:30 in the morning because we had to be there at before 4 p.m. and we had to get the trailer of gear first, get to the site by 4 a.m.
If the early bird gets the worm, it's the mixing person that gets everything else, because they're up even before the early bird.
Yeah, it's just brutal. Even before the worship leader, we know the tech guys are there.
Oh, heck yeah, first in.
So we get there, we set everything up, and the day starts around 10 or 11 a.m. And I'm mixing the small side stage, and it kind of goes back and forth. It's side stage, and then main stage, and it kind of rotates through. And I remember I had this band that was just kind of a, standard 4-piece rock band, and they were playing around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And so I'm running sound, everything's going well, and up jumps a woman from the crowd onto stage. And
she's feeling the spirit.
And Blake, be honest, have you ever even heard of the Grateful Dead? I should have asked you in that beginning.
Gratefully, in my heart, I have heard of the Grateful Dead. I don't know that I could ever name a single song of theirs.
Okay.
But I've heard of them.
I'm proud of you for at least having heard of them.
Yes.
But they were very big in the hippie culture and the hippie movement of the 70s. So this girl gets up in kind of a, flowery dress and just starts dancing on stage.
Free love, man.
And all the guys in the band are kind of looking at her like, this is awesome. A girl's dancing. And she takes off the dress.
Oh no.
Let's just call it. She eventually is dancing on stage naked. And I'm thinking to myself, please don't tell my parents. Please don't tell my parents. And so that was that moment when I'm I can't believe this is happening right now.
I mean, who was going to tell your parents?
Who was somebody. I knew I was going to get in trouble for this.
Oh,
I was like, they're going to
gosh.
find out somehow. So anyways, after that set, the band comes back to the soundboard and they're like, can you believe a naked woman danced on stage? We feel like we're real rock stars now. And I'm like, don't tell my parents.
They're like, who are your parents? You're like, exactly.
So at the end of the day, one of the the lead guys in this production team comes up to me and he said, like kind of like that moment, like, nice job, kid. Like you're not so bad. And he said to me, I'm part of a bigger production company. We do a lot of tours and we actually have a tour coming up. And would you want to, come on and be, I'm sure I would have been like the lowest of the grunts. But I said, oh, that's interesting. What tour is it? He said, well, we're going with the Red Hot Chili Peppers to Europe this summer.
Oh my gosh, what a spicy offer. You took it, right?
There's no way I could not tell my parents that I'm going to Europe to tour with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I thought to myself, the level of debauchery that I could imagine a summer with Red Hot Chili Peppers in Europe. So I was like, yeah, my mom would never let me go. So the Chili Peppers tour did not happen.
Well, that is very wise of you to know that probably wouldn't be the best move, but man, what a freaking story. Like that is hysterical. I'm now here with a man who is no stranger to waking up in the middle of the night to mix a live sound event, as Toby had to do back for the Grateful Dead, a production manager at Bayside Church and Thrive School, David Roediger. David, welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Thanks for having me.
So tell us about that last name, David Roediger, right? With it like kind of with a grr on it.
Yeah, as Toby said earlier, that's what bears do. They grr.
And you know all about bears, right?
I know a thing or two about bears.
Because you're basically a human bear.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I grew up with them. They raised me.
Did you grow up with bears? Like, is this a joke or, where are you from, David?
Well, I'm from Alaska, so I feel like we're kind of begging the point at the moment right now.
So
right?
You did grow up with bears.
We grew up with bears, yes.
And is it more likely that you see a bear in your front yard or a moose or something else?
Or bear eating moose on the front yard.
No, for real?
That has happened, not on my front yard. But
on a friend's?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
While the bear's eating the moose, is it saying grrr?
It's, yes.
How many shotguns does every Alaskan have in their house?
There are many guns.
I had a feeling.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, that is insane. So let's get to some more insanity. We've got 7 pieces of info on David here, one of which is a lie. So I'm going to read us out the 7, and then me and Toby will guess the lie. Toby, what do you think our odds are of getting this right? Based on what you know about David Roediger.
They're not very good.
Not very.
Yeah.
I was going to say
trying
they're
for
great.
that dad hammer. They're great.
Just like a bowl of Kellogg's cereal.
I'm so embarrassed that you made a better joke than I did right there.
It happens once every blue moon. All right. So David began his career in live production at 18 years ago, 13 of which have been spent serving in church ministry. I'm going to go ahead and say that one's probably true.
Well, you can't guess the lie until we get to the end. Read them all.
Sorry. I never know if
Stop getting distracted.
Here we go. Number 2. Joined the Air Force at 17 years old to work.
Can you join in less than 18? Now I'm
Who's getting distracted now?
Sorry.
This is
Keep
I
going.
was like, do we riff as we go? 17 years old to work in Combat Communication Squadron, where he maintained a higher than a top security clearance and was, at the time, one of the youngest recipients of the Air Force Achievement Medal.
Wow.
That one's got to be true. He's a father of 3, the oldest of whom was born while Dave was mixing for an internationally broadcast event with then Vice President Joe Biden. Oh man, that's an inopportune time for your kid to come into the world when you're not available.
Yeah. Okay.
He had a short career as a Japanese
Japanese model.
As a Japanese model where he worked in television, commercials, and magazines for the likes of Pepsi, Sony, and countless clothing brands.
If this isn't the lie, this is going to be an amazing conversation.
I'm starting to see a narrative form here of how these stories link.
Yeah.
He served as an audio engineer with the Luis Palau.
Butchering that.
Oh,
Roediger,
no.
can you pronounce that for us?
Luis Palau.
The Luis Palau Association on every large music festival since 2014. He has gotten to work with 3 United States presidents. Oh, man. And here comes the list. So some artists he's gotten to work with are Thrive Worship, Newsboys, League and Brewster, Elton John, Mutemath. Oh, Toby loves Mutemath.
I love Mutemath.
For King and Country, Lecrae, Tool, Cake, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who Toby was definitely on the tour for.
Did I miss hanging out with Roediger in Europe?
Toby Mac, NF, Crowder, Tim McGraw, We Are Messengers, Brad Paisley, and 2 other words I can't pronounce. David,
Atreyu and Mudvayne.
Perfect.
I'm exhausted with all those accolades.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Okay, this lie, I don't even know where to begin. I'm gonna have to say it's the Japanese model because I want to tease out this story if it's not.
So here's what I'm going to say. I bet he did do the Air Force. I bet he was stationed in Japan, and they were like, "Oh, you look different because you're not Japanese." Well, like that's very common.
Well, nobody on the podcast can see him. So do we need to clear up that he's not Japanese, in fact?
David, are you Japanese?
I am not Japanese.
Okay. Perfect. So when you're in other countries, it's like if you're not from there, it's like, oh, that person's unique. So I could see them being like, let's use him for a marketing campaign. Do you know how many kids he has?
I do.
Does he have three?
He has 3 kids.
Okay, perfect. Let's get rid of that one. I think he's baked his lie into his list of people at the very bottom.
And that just seems sneaky. Like just one of those isn't true.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I think that'd be a really sneaky play.
Okay. So that's your guess.
Well, and I think we have to pick one. Actually,
I already picked. It's been like 10 minutes. You're waffling back and forth.
I'm really trying to do this right. I'm trying to get the point.
The Japanese model's a lie. That's my pick.
I don't think that's it. I'm going to say though he's worked with 2 United States presidents instead of 3. I think that he's baking the lie into the number.
Okay.
David, we got our official guesses. Hit us with the truth.
Both of you are wrong. Both those are true. So the lie is my oldest son was not born while I was behind a soundboard mixing for Joe Biden, but that almost happened. Almost happened. So essentially, condensing the story a bit, Melissa, my wife, who's just to my right here, the doctor really wanted to induce her the night before the event. And if you know anything about doing anything for any presidential or dignitary, things get complicated because now you've got Secret Service or you got Capitol Police. And so we were working for weeks with Secret Service at the venue that we're at in Alaska. And everyone who is going to be there, backstage areas, has to get clearance to be there. And so we're going, all right, well, she's got a medical thing the doctor wants to induce her for the night before. And we're going, whoa, time out. There literally is no one that can do my job tomorrow and no one that can get, get the clearance to be with Secret Service, be able to do the job.
And who are you more scared of, Secret Service or your wife?
For sure, my wife.
I mean, she is
hands
9
down.
months pregnant at this point.
Yes. It's first kid, fear of God. Absolutely. So anyway, fast forwarding a bit, I ended up doing the event and right afterwards booked over to a closet, changed out of my clothes into different clothes, had a go bag and went straight to the hospital right afterwards. So
wow. Okay, so that was for then Vice President Joe Biden. Who are the other 2 presidents?
And wait, was the kid worth it?
He was worth it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Toby, the kid might be listening one day. We can't ever let him feel like he wasn't worth it.
That's why Dave said,
he's pretty great.
Yes, he's worth it.
So who are the other 2 presidents that you've done mixing for?
President W. Bush and Biden. My goodness. Obama.
Tell us about really quickly, because it's not tech related, but gosh, we're just so curious at this point. You had a short career as a Japanese model in television commercials?
And was this a swimsuit model like you told me previously?
And are there photos still?
There are actually somewhere. I believe. So here's the deal. When you ask me about this, I need you to write a bio and include a lie. I'm going, well, I've got to put some stuff in there where the lie is not going to be super obvious. Yeah. You're going to go like, well, that's a lie. No, that's got to be the lie. So I added this in there. It's not tech related, but so I was a military brat. You were actually really close. I was never stationed in Japan, but my dad was. And so we lived in Japan for 5 years when I was young. And so when I was still, or not yet looking the way I do now, I was
looking more Japanese
to be a model. But no, all that was, so I was, between the ages of like 7, 8, and 9 years old. So I was young and it was interesting.
Did you have blonde hair?
I had blonde hair.
Total towhead.
Yep, towhead, blue eyes. And yeah, so I got stopped in a grocery store by a lady who didn't speak English, and she was just pulled out the measuring tape and started measuring inseam and all this kind of stuff. And my mom's looking for me in the grocery store, and she sees me getting measured by this lady who doesn't speak any English and just gives her a business card. And
that's actually how I met my wife. I just started measuring her. It went really well.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the story about the whole model thing. So
that's amazing.
Somewhere in my parents' house, there still is a stack of magazines that I modeled in clothes and all that kind of stuff.
So you're basically a former child star, is what you're saying.
I guess.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone
with hopefully
in Japan,
less drugs.
Yeah, much less drugs.
Yeah, I want to see those photos pretty quickly.
Okay, and in your list of artists you work with, you mentioned Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
Tell me about this bullet I did or did not dodge.
Well, what's really interesting is I've gotten a chance to do a bunch of touring, but I've never been to Europe. So I didn't go to Europe. So I will say it's just coming from Alaska is it's not the obvious choice to start a production career, right? Grew up there, fell into it. It just so happened that Alaska was treated as kind of an overseas tour stop, right? So pretty much everyone going over there is just going to be doing a one-off. And so very expensive to bring your entire show with you. And so it just so happened the production company I was working with, or production companies I was working with, would get hired to do a lot of these really large shows. And so it was unique in the sense that we would be doing like a Red Hot Chili Peppers show, but most of the PA would be our PA and they wouldn't have brought their own. So it created a lot of opportunities to get to system tech or crew manage or, run audio or lighting or anything something like that. Because I was in a position where there was not many people that did what I did. And I just had great opportunity whenever there's a big show that came to town. So it was pretty cool.
Man, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's fast forward. We'll go back and forth because this list of accolades is super fun. There's a lot of stuff there. But now you're currently a production director. Is that your title?
I think my official title is production manager, but the role is, we all know we meet people that are called director or manager.
Yeah.
It's kind of interchangeable. Yeah.
Okay. So this morning I told my son, who's 9 years old, we're recording a couple podcast episodes. And then he asked if he could be on the podcast. And I was just kind of laughing. I was like, what do you know about church production? He's like, well, that's how churches product.
And he just nailed it.
Yes, he nailed
that's
it.
Exactly
and
right.
So my wife and I are just cracked up laughing like, yeah, product's not a word, buddy. And then I told my wife, I'm like, we're going to talk about this on the podcast. And then he says to me, don't talk about that. This is a private moment.
Oh, Titus, the number one rule of he was doing so well. The number one rule of podcasting is to be willing to make a fool of yourself. And he did at the beginning. Just
That's
make
right.
up words. That's all you got to do.
He should have known before he chose me as his father.
LOL.
That's when you come back and just say, producting is never a private moment.
That's very true
That's
as
right.
well.
Not in church
Yes.
producting.
So just give us a little overview of your, current role, what you're doing, and just your love of churches and where it, combines with production ministry.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm in a unique position at Bayside just because we do this production thing at a really high level that kind of feels like I'm just always on tour, but I get to go to my own bed every single night. And so we're a large church, over 20,000, I think, people attend Bayside.
Wow.
And we have somewhere in the realm of, I think, 8 campuses. It just so happens the 3 largest campuses are all within a 5 to 10 minute drive from each other. So we have a pretty decent sized production team. So my specific role is I'm the production manager for our Adventure campus. And
what's Adventure? Is that like a town or an area?
That is
or is that a lifestyle?
That's a lifestyle.
Okay.
So the church was originally not a Bayside church, and within the last 4 years, they became a Bayside church, and they kept that name Adventure, and now it's just called Bayside Adventure.
Okay.
So, but we have Bayside Blue Oaks, Granite Bay, and Adventure all within pretty close proximity with each other, and I am one of a few production managers who work together to, we pull off big global events, conferences, concerts, things like that. And each one of us are responsible for a campus. So the campus that I'm responsible for is the Adventure campus. And we kind of do all the normal production-y things there, right? So the big goal is...
You product.
Yeah, we product. Yeah, the goal is, 52 great weekends a year. And so we are serving our pastors and serving our midweek ministry teams to pull off, everything that they do, from men's ministry, all the weekend services and student ministry and things like that. And then we come together and do the bigger events.
Okay. I just had a light bulb go off in my head. David, you're a production manager. You have tools at your disposal all day long, but you've got gaff tape, you've got duct tape, but now I think we should make product tape for every production crew.
That's excellent.
Yes.
Product tape.
Yeah.
There we go.
You heard it here first, folks. I already trademarked it.
So if only trademarking was that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So you lived in Nashville for a short time when you were a touring tech, and you just mentioned like it's great to get to go to sleep every night in your own bed because you obviously didn't get to do that when you were touring.
Yeah.
So like tell us some about the bands that like you toured with. Any funny stories from that? Like,
yeah. So yeah, I love the Nashville area. It's I fell in love with it in 2017, spent some time here when I was touring with a few different bands. So some of the bands I went out with to kind of knock that out was Blanca, Derek Minor, Sidewalk Prophets, Seven Time Down, Newsboys. And Newsboys is probably the biggest Nashville-based band that I went out with. And so, oh man, funny stories. I was thinking about this a while ago, and
is this Michael Tate era of Newsboys?
It is Michael Tate era of Newsboys. I did go out with them once or twice with the United, which was that was a trip because when I first started getting into church, church period, and listening to music, Newsboys were one of my favorite bands of that kind of CCM genre, and to be working for them was really cool. Anyway, so there's so many funny stories I want to share, but I can't because they are private moments.
Did you sign an NDA, I'm guessing?
No, I did not, but it's just
it's the
private
bro code.
moments. Yeah, it's the code. There's one that comes to mind that I think I can share because it happened in front of probably 3,000-4,000+ people. And so,
well, they'll all keep a secret.
Yeah, they'll all keep a secret. So, it was with the Newsboys. We were on the big church night out tour, and this was in, I believe it was 2017. And I can't remember where we were, but we were in an arena, and it is normal. Kind of understand a little bit of the pre-show vibe before the boys walk out on stage. And so they kind of on their own start trickling in side stage, usually during an opening act when they're on stage and whatnot. Michael typically likes to be side stage. He's usually one of the first ones there, honestly. The one that we had to kind of keep an eye out for was Duncan, their drummer. And so he would typically kind of get right to the side stage just before they go on. And so all that being said, he's the one that's on our radar. It's like, okay, if Duncan's here, we're good to roll as soon as it's that time to roll. And I'm not sure exactly how they're doing this now, but at the time, when Newsboys went on, it was a pre-recorded track, right? And so the track was a kind of an EDM kind of a feel, and it was a bunch of lasers and a female's voice kind of saying countdown.
So they play
Newsboys.
Moby to come out on stage.
Yeah, basically.
Sure.
So, but also, and this is very, very normal for most concert tours, and that is everything's time coded, right? And so the band's playing live, but there's a time code and a click track going on that only they can hear in their ears. Well, they don't hear the time code, but they hear the click track and the cues. And the time code is going to lighting consoles and media servers to fire all these elaborate lighting cues and videos that happen during the show. So once you push start, it's go time. So we push start. It's 30 seconds to Newsboys, right? That's going on. There's lasers going and everything. Duncan gets up on stage. He starts his big drum thing that goes on. You can hear Jody stage right playing some guitar licks, and the guys get on stage, and the song starts. And the moment that Michael's supposed to come on, there is no Michael. And so the band's on stage, they're playing the first song. There's no lead vocal at all. And we're going, where's Tate?
Did anybody ask if the rapture had happened? You know, he was the only one that got taken.
I mean,
that'd be unfortunate for the rest of the Newsboys, well as Dave.
Hey, who can judge a man's heart? Not I. I mean,
I was going to say, the 4,000 people that were there were still there. And
so it's not likely that's what happened.
Not likely what's happened. So I run, I'm going backstage area along with their tour manager, Steve, and a few other guys. And we're looking for Michael. And by the time I get back to the loading dock, their tour manager, Steve, and Michael come back to the back door. And Steve just gave me a look and a hand gesture of basically don't say anything. And by the time Michael gets back to the arena or gets into the arena, they had stopped the track. They'd start the whole show over. And when he got in there, it was 30 seconds, the Newsboys. So he doesn't know. He just thinks, oh, it's time for the show. He goes on and he plays the entire show. They never addressed the fact they played. So here's the deal. They didn't play part of the first song. They played the entire first song. No lead singer, started the whole show over, played the first song again. No. Michael had no idea. And later on, we're on the bus and he's like, man, we finally tell him we're on the bus. And he just loses it. And he goes, man, that was the hardest crowd to get engaged. And come to find out, they were super confused.
They were like, is this Groundhog Day?
My favorite part of the whole thing was looking out into the crowd and just seeing the most confused look on everyone's faces. And everyone's wondering, when are you going to talk about the thing that just happened and never happened? So
that's funny. Oh my gosh.
Okay. So you've worked with Newsboys, but who does your wife work for? What company?
My wife works for EMF, and I'm completely forgetting what that means, but K-Love is an Air One.
So I want to know your opinion. Who made the Newsboys career in your marriage? Was it you or your wife for their radio success?
Well,
pick the right answer, David.
My wife.
Obviously. And we actually have Michael Tate in the next room to
come
speak into that.
Yeah, totally.
Yes,
it's not like they
late.
were doing it for 20 years before we came around.
Yes.
That's funny. Hey, let's rewind a bit. So you were talking about being in Alaska. You're in a place where, you're not really seeing people that often. It's the flyover tour spot.
There are people in Alaska, just so you know.
Well, those people
He's not like out in the woods by himself.
Those people are too busy fighting off the bear that's fighting the moose in their front yard.
True.
So you're our first Alaskan native tech director to be on the pod. Like, did you feel isolated when you were up there? Like, did you feel connected to the tech tribe overall? And especially back in those days, people weren't as connected via like Facebook groups and all that kind of stuff. Like, would you feel kind of on your own up there? What was it like, learning, getting mentored, all that?
Man, yeah, that was, it's interesting because so if I look back, I'm going, it was kind of both, but definitely in the first 8 to 10 years, there wasn't, it's not a production hub, right? It's not like Nashville or Los Angeles or New York or something like that. So it was very much, I definitely got the sense of, I learned how to do what I know how to do by breaking stuff first and then learning how to fix it.
With product tape?
With product tape.
Yep.
Right. So there's a lot of producting.
Yes.
In the early,
just trying to get that to stick.
Patent pending.
Yep. You caught that.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to escape it now.
Good. Yeah, it's going to be, I can see a whole line, product glue. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, it was, I wasn't really aware of much of a church production community. And also when I was getting started, I wasn't even aware of churches doing production the way churches do production now. Right. And so, now it's all, video and streaming and YouTube and all this kind of stuff. And that just wasn't even a thought, at least to me back then. And so I definitely felt, alone in that a lot. I didn't have a whole lot of people that did what I did and didn't have a whole lot of opportunity for mentorship. So I kind of grew up reading Church Production Magazine. And it wasn't really until I started into kind of falling into touring that I started to meet people and started to learn about this community, this church production community everywhere. And obviously, guys like Lee Fields, for example, Jeff Sandstrom over the MXU team.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, I know. I met Lee about 10 years ago, and he was one of the people that kind of, there's an aha moment for me. I was like, oh, there's a whole, not just a guys that run audio and tour with rock stars, but there's people that do this in local church ministry that serve leaders and pastors and kind of serve the communication and transmission of the gospel message. So, that's probably when I became aware about this.
So fast forward again, back to present day. I assume, back in Alaska, you're saying, it's hard to find like teams of people to be a part of in the production world.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're very much in a position to build teams of people for production ministry. Yeah. And so how do you go about that?
Man, that's really good. I can't say that I go about it differently than most people, but I do think
better.
But sure, I'll take it. I'll go with that. Yeah. I mean, Toby, you and I have talked before, and I've mentioned, I think I've said this phrase where I'm not an incredibly technical person. And so even though I've had a lot of opportunities to do technical things, I am more of a relational person. And so I build teams around relationship. And I genuinely believe that if you can grab someone to the vision of what you're doing and you invest in them and care about them as a person, they will find passion for the things that you do. And so it's really interesting, especially with high schoolers in general. So most of my team right now are high schoolers. You give them an opportunity to do something fun and you are interested in them and care about them. And next thing you know, they go, oh, I've got this person that cares about me. I'm finding community. I'm doing a really cool thing. And that really is like, this production thing can be a really cool catalyst for community within a local church ministry. And so if I'm going to say if there's one way that I build teams, I build teams around relationship, and that just fosters the passion and growth of their craft.
I feel like we hear just over and over and over again, like, find the young people in the church that like don't have, not that they don't have a place in this world, but like they don't have anything to do at the moment. And like, it's almost like production directors, production manager, whatever you call it. It's like, you need to have a good eye for that, like diamond in the rough kind of talent. Yeah. And it's often in the youth group. Like get in there, meet those guys. Like you said, give them something fun to do, bring them into like a team of people. Yeah. And it seems like that is the gold sitting in the youth group for all these tech directors out there.
I'd agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. It's, you hit on the thing too, like when COVID hit and kind of blew all of our worlds up, student ministry or, youth group, they weren't meeting in person like they used to, but what team in the church was still meeting in person to produce weekend services and stuff like that?
The tech team.
It was a tech team. So we're still meeting together. We're still doing things. And maybe in our context where I'm in California. And we, if anyone watches the news, California was shut down. And so we had a season where we weren't meeting in person on weekends, but we were meeting every single day, 5 days a week, 12 hours a day to figure out a way that we can take what was the in-room experience and let's try and take it to everyone else's living room so they can have their in-room experience at their house. And that took an incredible amount of work. And it was a great outlet for high schoolers to jump in and be a part of that.
Yeah, and it seems it's just crazy how almost every story we hear, it's like tech directors got their start in high school.
And I'm sure the parents are pleased that their children are not just sitting at home playing video games 12 hours a day, but they're getting involved in a team at church. Yeah. Especially during that COVID time when there was nothing else to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So then kind of connect the dots for your tech timeline. Like did you go from Alaska to touring in Nashville to then Bayside in California? Is that kind of the hop and skip and a jump of your story?
A little bit. I would say, so I started as a musician originally. I was a guitar player in a handful of bands. And one of those bands, we were playing an event at a theater. It's about a 2,000-seat theater in Anchorage, Alaska. And I met the production manager who owned a production company. He and I hit it off in between, sound check and the evening. And he just goes, hey, I need more people to help with a concert this weekend. I don't have enough local crew guys. Do you want to jump in and help out? I was like, well, I don't know anything. And he goes, well, it's fine. You're just going to show up, push, do whatever you get yelled at to do. We'll pay you, we'll feed you, and you get to see the show for free. And I was like, I'm sold.
That sounds like working at Church Gear.
I know.
Did a naked lady dance on stage?
There's a few of them off stage. Yes. Okay. So the first band.
Don't tell my mom.
Oh, I won't. No, the first band so it was Tool. It was the first band. Oh. So
hold on. We love to do this thing, Dave, where we see if Blake has heard of this.
The answer is no. I'm a total Tool. I don't know who they are. Apparently,
Tool is like a heavy band from the 90s, early 2000s. They were big, and just like a hard rock band.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, and it was a really cool experience. Honestly, it reminded me a lot like being in the military. I was in a combat unit, basically meaning all the stuff you work on gets put on pallets and puts on an airplane, and then it goes somewhere else. When you're working on stuff, it's not at home. It's somewhere else. I was like, oh, I was a roadie before I was a roadie and I didn't even know it.
Nice.
So there you go. So basically that's how I got started out, freelancing for local production companies, and then starting serving at my church. So I moved from playing guitar to running sound. And then I ended up getting my first job at a church as an audio director. And fast forward a little bit, I ended up making friends with a guy named Kevin Hart, who's Epoch Creative, and he's a production manager for Luis Palau Association.
So not the comic.
Not the comic.
I thought you were about to casually drop. Like I was like, no, David, say it with your chest. Like you,
a man named Kevin Hart, the most famous comedian in the world.
Yes.
Okay.
And well, here's the thing, because we joke, because he couldn't look more opposite of the Kevin Hart we're thinking of. He's very tall.
That's funny.
He's a little wide.
Not Japanese.
He's very white. So anyway, great guy, one of my best friends, but he was part of doing a big Luis Palau festival. And so what these are basically like Billy Graham festivals. So Luis Palau is kind of like the Latin Billy Graham, right? And
nice.
And so essentially I met him. He was like, oh, we're going to do this big festival in Anchorage. Tens of thousands of people are going to show up, and we're bringing Toby Mac and Lincoln Brewster and 1,000 Foot Crutch, and he's listing the names of the bands that are going to be there. And Luis Palau is going to do the gospel message. And I was like, "Who's Luis Palau?" And he's like, "You remember Caleb? Luis Palau." And I'm like, "Oh, no, I don't." So
that was super helpful.
So I was honestly a little skeptical about the whole thing, because I was a part of a church that was trying to get Toby Mac to play for a few years, and he had turned down the opportunity to play there for a while.
Because you're in Alaska.
Well,
there are bears.
Well, here's the deal. Yeah, totally. It's a hard place.
Yeah. Does Toby Mac even have a shotgun? I mean, how can he come to Alaska?
I know. How's he going to defend himself? So, that's kind of how I got into that. I did this one event. He and I became friends. He hired me to help him out with the event.
Not Toby Mac.
Not Toby Mac.
Kevin Hart.
Back to Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart.
That is a good note.
Yes. Not the Kevin Hart. And he's kind of flown me around the world to do every major festival ever since. So,
oh, wow.
And so having the proximity to meeting a lot of the bands and the artists actually from your guys' neck of the woods, that's really what kind of gave me the opportunity to come here and tour the Newsboys and some of those other guys.
Okay, so started out as a guitar player. Do you want to put it on record on this podcast that you did actually teach Lincoln Brewster guitar?
Taught him everything he knows.
I figured. Okay, so talk to us about being a musician. So many people in the tech world start out as musicians and then just kind of are inspired, like something clicks with the tech. But how does the the musical background help you then be a better mix engineer, production director, all those things?
Man, it matters a lot, at least to me. So I was a guitar player. I forget how many years, but I think all the way since fifth grade, I was doing music, right? I played trumpet, then I played guitar. I was in jazz bands. So I was the band nerd with the holy jeans. I could beat you up kind of a thing in high school.
While being a Japanese model.
And hunting bears on the weekends.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have been scared of you. Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally.
So, it's just, I think there's a lot of my success in communicating with musicians in general is just because I used to be one. I understand that language. I understand what it feels like to be on a big stage with a lot of people in front of you. And I will say this: if you're a production person and you're doing front of house sound, think of the most nerve-wracking event you've ever done and how you felt before that started. And that's just how your musicians feel every single weekend when they walk on stage. It's the same kind of thing. So I can relate in that. And because I can relate in that, I could just communicate better.
Oh, totally. I mean, having empathy for whatever is going on is one of the most important factors. I remember seeing on LinkedIn, it was the next skill of the whatever century will be empathy. And you had it, you knew what they needed because you had been them.
Totally. And also, while I wasn't on stage with them, I just come from that mindset of going I want them to win, right? I know what it feels like to be in that position, and I'm just excited for the whole thing we're doing, whether it's doing a church service in the weekend or if it's going to be in an arena. I just want this to be the coolest thing. I want them to win. I want whoever's in the room experiencing the event, I want them to have a great experience. And so I think approaching it from that all the time that has been huge for me. And so there's many layers there as far as being a musician, right? There's the years of ear training I had unintentionally. Like I never knew I was going to become an audio guy or a production guy, but always listening to musicians in the room and listening to everything from, I mean, in high school, it was metal and jazz for me. So I was a jazz band and I was listening to metal. And
have you discovered a combination of those two things yet? Like, does it exist on Apple Music?
Exists?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, totally. No, that's great. It probably does. And if it does, I have to see it. But I mean, those years for me were hugely valuable. So the ear training I got from just playing with musicians in the room, the relational aspect with relating with musicians, learning how to talk basic music theory and things like that. That's been huge. And so I don't know if you guys know, but most of the things I get hired for outside of church ministry when I go do a show, I'm usually a monitor engineer. And so basically what that means is I'm talking into a mic in those guys' ears on stage, and there's a relationship that's happening between monitor engineer and bands that typically doesn't happen when you have, 100-foot distance in between the front of house area and the stage.
I mean, just like we are in our listeners' ears right now, you are in your band's ears. Like
can be. Yeah. So there's, again, like you have to get along with the people on stage and, yeah.
So your list of artists that you work with was extremely long. Blake tripped over almost every name on that list.
Sure.
Give us is there one that you would say like, okay, that was my favorite artist of all time that I've worked with? And I know it's Michael Tate. We can just set that off the table because he's in the next room. But
I mean,
this is so funny that you're pulling it back to that because I was wanting to give him another tee up on the shot of those and also the presidents. I'm like, oh my gosh, like any other presidential.
We try not to get political, so you don't have to tell us your favorite president that you've worked with.
No, not president, but just like that's some high stakes, all that security.
Is true. Yeah. Okay. So favorite artist, you're on the spot.
Favorite artist, that's really tough. I would say
it's like picking a favorite kid, but a lot easier,
It is. Well, here's the deal. Like Newsboys was huge for me because just that getting to know them as people. And even so, like I was literally texting with, I guess I'll say it. So Melissa and I are going to be meeting up with them tonight, late tonight, because they're going to be bus calling out to a number of tour stops this week. So we're going to go check them out for about 30 minutes, say hi, and then wave them off if they go. So like just knowing them as people is pretty huge for me. I love that. But like you can't really top Elton John, right?
That is tough. Yeah.
And so it's like that experience was super cool. He did a mini Alaskan tour. It was one of the states that he never been to. Yeah. It was one of the states he never been to. And so this was 14 years ago, I think. And he was talking retirement 14 years ago from touring and
still talking about
it. Yeah, totally. And Alaska is one of the states he'd never been to. And so he came up there and was doing 3 shows in 2 different cities. And it was just him and a piano. And he's got, it's in an arena. So he's got lighting rig and big sound and all that kind of stuff. But that was really stinking cool. Yeah. Sitting there at front of house, watching a guy that's, culturally iconic with just a piano owning 10,000 people in the palm of his hand. It's a cool experience.
Special, unique talent that very few people on the earth have.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there was and your wife would probably know this, but if there was one band, one artist out there that you kind of you lay awake thinking well, if they ever called, that'd be the ultimate.
You would drop everything. You would cancel the vacation. You would go.
And it probably
do that
just goes back to who's your favorite band of all time?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
I mean, if Zeppelin, reunited and called you,
I'm honest. If I were to be honest, there's probably a small handful of bands. I mean, I don't know that answer. Mutemath was one of them. I loved Mutemath.
I will drive you by the house with it. They recorded their records in because it's.
You're kidding.
Pretty much throw a rock from here.
No way.
And their third record. No, I'm getting them mixed up now with King and Country because it's the same house, same producer, Ted T.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I mean, you could pretty much throw a rock to that house right now.
And that's what
I wish our listeners could see your face because you're I'm
literally gobsmacked right now. I didn't know this. This is amazing. Okay, so I'll say this. I don't know how to answer that. But I will say if I could be a part of any tour in history, I know this is not really the question, but I'll answer it this way.
No, that works.
Pink Floyd Pulse.
Okay.
That's the tour I think I would have, in my personal opinion, that's probably like, I don't know that tour, anything has topped that tour since. That's an incredible show. So,
and we have to pause. Blake, have you heard of Pink Floyd?
Oh, I was at that tour. I was like,
no, come on.
Yeah,
You're
no,
lying,
I know Pink
Okay.
Floyd is a band. Yes.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
as far as your knowledge goes.
Yeah. I'm not going to say
Sure.
they're my favorite band, but that show was ridiculous. So
What was it about it that just made it your favorite show?
it was just at the time, it was like the biggest thing that was out there. And like
This was the 90s, right?
90 Pulse was
4 or 5?
94, I think. Yeah.
Because I remember kids at my high school saying,
Yeah.
I'm going to see Pink Floyd at the Charger Stadium in San Diego back then.
And Toby was
wild.
like, I can go with you, but don't tell my mom.
No,
Yeah.
because my mom would have found out.
That's wild. If I were going to say right now a band, man, I'd love one day to do something with Colony House. Those guys are great.
So we tell this story on another episode. It's already come out.
Okay.
But I accidentally ended up at Stephen Curtis Chapman's house one day.
Okay.
And so like all of Colony House's like tour set is sitting
Yeah.
there with all their gear, and like they weren't there at the moment, but
yeah, I did so it wasn't a Palau festival. It was another festival. I was with my friend Kevin Hart.
not the Kevin
Not
Hart.
the Kevin Hart, but the Kevin Hart. So we were in, I think, Connecticut or Northeast part of the United States, and we're doing a outside event, and it's just gorgeous. The setting was amazing. I think we were in the Adirondacks, if I'm
Nice,
right.
yes.
So do you have an idea of where the setting is? We're outside, and the headliner of this one night that we were doing was Stephen Curtis Chapman, and he had a band there, and I didn't know anything different, right? I knew that Stephen Curtis Chapman, I didn't realize that the band was going to be Colony House backing him up. So it was,
I mean, it's two of his sons.
yeah,
so-
two of his sons. Well, it's, and I'm horrible with names, but it's a lead singer and it's a drummer, I believe, right? You probably know their names.
one of them's named Caleb.
Kate, I think that's right. Yeah. So there was this moment where, and I didn't know that during the whole show, really. And so there's this moment in the middle of Steven's set where he basically introduces his son's band, Colony House, and hands a mic off to his son who sings lead in that band. And they played a song, blew my mind. And I've been a fan ever since. So,
I love that band.
Yeah.
It's so good.
He was passing the baton or passing the mic. So, David, we like to ask everybody a tech takeaway. This is something that is just like a tip for you. Everyone knows best practices. This is a thing that you're like, man, this is something I swear by that no one else knows or does. It's just kind of specifically you, David Roediger. So what would be a tip you would give someone like this will help your Sunday services, whether it's philosophical, whether it's technical?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that word philosophical because I was scratching my head going, I don't think I have a technical.
Yeah, I
answer
mean,
for
when we
this.
ask this, it's not like,
Yeah.
on my Behringer X32, I like to set the preset of blah, 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 blah. It's normally like,
Yeah.
higher level.
Yeah, I would say specifically to the person in technical local church ministry, learn to lead up. I would say, and I think my executive pastors would agree, the thing I'm most skilled at isn't running sound. It isn't, and I'm pretty good at that.
I mean, your mic stand
Just
keeps falling down.
I
so
know exactly.
That's an initial worry for me on this.
Yeah, and
running
it's a
sound
pretty
thing.
good mic stand, so it's not the mic
Yeah, it's a-
stand's fault.
it's a
I don't
K&M,
think.
I think.
Yeah, it is a K&M.
All right.
Look, David
Yeah.
has so much gravitas that it is gravitating towards him.
Ooh, well played.
Oh, there you go. But I keep lowering my head and looking at you guys by the top of the brim of my hat,
Which is
Anyway,
ironic because you're talking about leading up as you're bending down. But
that is true. Yeah, but it's I would say that's a big thing. It's learning to communicate with your leadership is huge, and the more that your leaders can feel like you are genuinely for them, and we use that word empathetic again for kind of the role that they're in and what they're walking through, you will notice a pretty large growth in your ability to really be effective in your ministry well. And so it's I would say we hear about the struggle between, I really feel like I need to get, X, Y, and Z in order to, be successful in what I do, whether it's a new mic or a new light or whatever. And the real answer is, before you start going to your lead pastors and telling them, this is what I need, maybe go to them and ask them how they're doing, get to know them. And then you'll find that's just been hugely helpful for me. And I learned that over the years. And I think there was probably something I learned from in the military, brushing shoulders with people that have just been around a lot longer than I have and learning how to communicate well with them. Learn the relationship side of ministry, which is arguably a lot more important than your audio gear is.
It almost sounds like, hey, how can I help you? How are things going with you? And then by the end, naturally, that conversation turns reciprocal, and it's like, well, what do you need? And then you're allowed to say, oh, yeah, I'd love this
totally.
new mic.
And it's not manipulation, right? Because any good leader is going to recognize when you're trying to butter them up, right?
Totally.
It is when your lead pastor genuinely feels like you care about them and their family, they'll suddenly start caring about the lights you really feel like you need. So, and anyone can do this. You can go to my Instagram page, David Roediger, AK, and you'll see a bunch of pictures of things that we've done at Bayside and stuff like that. And what's really interesting is if you look at the really awesome, cool lights and pictures of them, every single one of those lights are used, and you'd be surprised how much stuff is held by Protect tape.
Product tape.
Oh, whatever.
Come on.
We'll just
come on,
Roediger. We'll say Product
now, Toby,
tape.
he's about to say something nice about used lights, which we sell used lights. So
Absolutely.
This is great. This was going to be organic.
Yeah, but I'm in a context where at my campus specifically, I've had to make the best of what we have. And we have a lot of old light fixtures that we've used very successfully. And all that stuff's held together pretty well by Product tape.
Thank you.
But anyway, all that being said, it's as soon as you start caring about your lead pastors and what they do and the ministry side of the things they care about, they'll start caring about all those, knobs and faders that you care about.
Love that. Well, you already gave your Instagram. I was about to say, any plugs or anything you wanted to plug at the end? We appreciate you coming on, man.
Well, I'll do this. My wife's handed me my phone, or her phone. There's a picture of my modeling days that none of you can see.
Oh I absolutely do not believe that is you.
That is absolutely
all right.
me.
Can that be sent to me?
That looks like
I'll send
I will
it to you.
post that.
Were you in
For
the
sure.
Sandlot? Like that looks like a kid from the Sandlot,
It was actually, I think it was right around those years.
Yeah,
So,
I think Sandlot was like 93.
We're going to meme that 100%.
there you
That's
go.
great.
Well, man, thanks for coming on the show, David. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me so much.
Thanks for listening. And hey, congratulations on surviving Sunday. If you happen to make it through next Sunday as well, join us again for your weekly Tech Breather.
Blake, I really felt like that episode today was very productive.
Oh, yeah. I felt like I learned a lot and that it was all held together by how productive it was.
And do you know what else would be really productive? Can you tell us, Blake?
Learning more about tech and enjoying tech, just getting to have a good time. If you're hearing my voice at this point, you've stuck around to the end, and you should bring a friend to the end of this episode. So share with them. Text this episode to them right now. Just be like, hey, I think that this episode would be productive for you.
I agree.